Hello, hello, beautiful humans. This is part two of our conversation with Vaja discussing life in Ukraine. If you haven't had a chance to listen to part one, definitely pause this and go back and listen to it. It gets you prepped before we go more in depth in this episode. You can always press pause and go back and listen and then come back. Now to our conversation with Vaja. What were like the civil and government institutions? Uh, were there still any there? Were they still? th- Do you know if they experienced any different um, mm, help, or if they were from government's side of things?
Hmm, that's a good question. Everything is related to the. Actually, it's counterintuitive, but nowadays we have mostly functioning country because of course there will be tons of nuances, but we'll still have governmental scientific institutions functioning properly. We will have our Antarctic expedition functioning at a moment. So we have bunch stuff like that, and that's really surprising because there's quite intense war going on. But most of the majority of country is able to work well. Rather, well, it's not. It will never be as before, right? But like more or less civilian lives. Yeah. So I think everything is functioning in a proper way. Churches are functioning, for example. Of course, if anything is related to big gatherings of people, that's not happening. But apart from that, no, yeah, it still functions. Schools are functioning, kindergartens and stuff. Of course, there's some nuances because you always need to have a shelter. For example, like kindergarten that my son visits, like they have like the actual shelter with like sandbags and stuff just because they will run there like on any air raid siren, and air raid sirens they happen usually multiple times a day usually. So yeah.
On Are those sirens for testing purposes, or does that mean that it's current and you have to
Yes,
be
it's
able to plan for attacks?
that is correct because unfortunately there is no testing sirens in this country anymore. All of them are well the actual ones, and uh, it's not that bad now for the civilian infrastructure because they're targeting energetics mostly, like electric generations and infrastructure. Lately, but for example, in the beginning of the year, like since I live in capital, everything was flying towards us. It was horrible. Like multiple times a day, like rockets were shot down, like in the clear sky, and yeah, that's quite a pleasant thing. And we have shelters and sirens for a reason. And if there's one, well, you probably need to react. Of course, people are lazy, and we figured that well, we can kind of if there's one type of weaponry, we can care less. As for the other type of weaponry, that's a bad thing. You should react to all of them in the same manner. But still, I know that well, certain things are flying. Yeah, probably we should just keep doing our stuff, our business. So, for example, we can just uh, like take a walk and we won't bother about certain things. But other things like ballistic missiles and stuff, like they have in flight time, I don't know, like 3 minutes, 5 minutes. So you better be quick. So yeah, some of them hit even before siren start. I hear the explosions, and after that, there's siren. Oh, okay, okay. That was helpful.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
How far away are those explosions from you that you can hear?
the closest one was like 300 yards, I believe.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a heavy missile. I believe it was X-22 or probably something like that. It's like half of ton of explosive. So I live in a six-story building, and it literally like shaked, like I don't know, like a foot. Like you're like sitting in bed and something like shakes you. So that was the feeling. So yeah, missiles are not a fun thing because I heard like mortars and artillery, well, tons of times, well, when I was back at my hometown. But missiles, that's something from other world. Just like that's really impressive.
Do you and your family, and is this something that a lot of people have, is like a new evacuation plan?
Oh yeah, so we definitely all have something in our minds. It might be not appropriate for the situation, and we probably
Yeah. I don't
we're
wanna
better.
talk about it in details, just if you
Yeah,
had it.
yeah. We all do have some ideas in our head. Well, at least the best thing that you could do in this situation actually is to well keep your tank filled topped up in your car. That's the best. That's the best preparation, I think, because that's what saved me when the war has started. They just decided to top up my car like a day before. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Because well, there's no fuel, there's no nothing. There's no gas stations because most likely they won't have anything on or they're already blown with something. So just like yeah, you need to somehow move as far as possible from the place where you're at the moment. And the best way to do it, just have some gas. That's the best thing. And that's when I figured that I'm not getting an electric vehicle. Well, I wanted one, but I figured, no, I'm not doing
Yeah.
that. Because when there's no electricity, it's probably a big paperweight, I think, of sorts.
That was gonna be something I asked as well is, with what have utilities been like for, um, now that you're in Kyiv, but then also just the different places you've had to stay of was electricity still running? Were there full utilities available? Even now, is that a consistent thing that you have access to?
Oof, I don't have consistent access to electricity even in capital because we have like they started to target our electrical infrastructure more and more. And at the moment, I think like 90% of our generative potential is destroyed or damaged. So we have electricity like in 4 hour chunks most of the time. So it's like 4 hours on, 4 hours off. Or like in that ballpark, it could be like 6 hours or something like that. It's not fun, but you can deal with it if they stick to well to the schedule. But they can't always stick to the schedule. That's unfortunate thing. But well, for now, for example, it's rather it's not very hot here, and I think that's what responsible for the most power consumption during the summer, right? The air conditioning. So we had electricity like the entire weekend, which is awesome. But starting from the Monday, most likely they will start to turn it off. But the worst thing was the not the previous the like the previous yeah the previous winter when the like we haven't had electricity for like 3 4 days in a row. That wasn't fun because as it turned out we have centralized heating and well it functions out of electricity, at least pumps do. So that's one unfortunate thing that I learned that well probably you should take care of heating some way. It's rather hard since I live in flat like most part of country like most of these post-Soviet Union countries live in flats and apartments because it was like so Soviet thing to build this like multiple story cities. This is a good thing and a bad thing because well there's really hard to stay self-sustainable in those kind of conditions because for example by the legal reasons and I can run a gas generator on my balcony for example, or if I don't have a balcony, like it's even worse. So it's kind of hard. But I still have a generator, and well, people care about law like for first couple of days, but after that, like most likely police will ask you to charge their power bank for them, something like that. So yeah, the electricity is it's a big problem for us right now. So, and we all recently upgraded my internet connection, for example, to be fiber optics because it's not so affected by the uh, blackouts that much. Well, if entire city is not in blackout, most likely it will work, and it works in my case. So I have the power supply for my router and stuff, so at least I can work. If I don't have electricity, well, at least till my laptop battery will run out. But I have some power banks. I have this like popular power stations nowadays, like EcoFlow or like you name it. There's a bunch of brands. I would highly suggest get one, just because it's so handy thing to do. Even if you're trying to, I don't know, like vacuum your car, you can do it if you don't have a receptacle nearby. But in stations like that, that would be super helpful. Like if you will have stuff like that, and from like an average power station you can survive for days, like in terms of like charging your cell phone, lighting, something like that. Because obviously if you will boil water or cook the food, well, probably you will run out of the electricity in, I don't know, in hours. But for that I would recommend you to get some gas stove, like the tourist version. I have the ethanol stove. Actually, somebody I was enjoying my time in nature before the war. I was like I loved hiking and stuff, and somebody I think somebody gifted me this stove, a small stove for the just for the hiking and stuff, and I still use it when there is no electricity, so that's a good thing.
Um, with, with it being no electricity at times, I know, I feel like at least in the US, probably many parts of the world, that a lot of the ways children are entertained are with tablets or with, TV. It How has that affected, keeping your child hopeful, but also entertained and educational? Like, how does schools work as well?
Yeah, you need to keep them busy. Yeah, that is true. And yeah, that's hard. But well, my wife, she obsessed with books. We have like I don't know, like metric tons of books. So it's just like it's not that big of a deal for us to keep him entertained. Well, as long as you want to read some fairy tales. But well, if you well entertain your kid from well, it will we do as well, but not as much. So yeah, there's definitely you better keep your tablet charged because well, there will be nothing to do, right? Because even like for example, if the blackouts happen in winter and most of them happen in winter just because well it's cold outside and just naturally uh, expensive to just heat places. So the strain on the electrical infrastructure is way more during the winter times. So, for example, after 4 p.m., it's I don't know, it's like very dark outside, so they won't be able to play outside, and you don't want to be outside on the blackout because the only noise that you hear is generators and they're like super loud, and every store, every building, every flat, like every balcony is just roaring with those generators. It's just like the sound and smell of gasoline just like it's everywhere. So yeah, you probably want to find some distant place, or but yeah, it still will be cold and dark, so most likely will stay home. And yeah, you need to think about entertainment in advance. That's a very good point. So yeah, you need to have your tablet charged, and I would recommend you to not chip out, buy YouTube Premium or something like that, just to download a bunch of cartoons and stuff, and so you can watch them offline. Because the first thing that will go with the electricity would be internet. Well, of course, if you have like optics fiber or Starlink, probably won't be affected as much, but fiber optics affected as well. It's like if it's like half of the city will be in the blackout, which is likely to happen, most likely none of the wired internet will be functioning properly. So it's only Starlink and stuff. So yeah, and if you don't have one, yeah, probably download something beforehand.
What about school? How is school? It is it back to somewhat normal now, or is it?
Yeah, some I like the word somewhat because it's still somewhat normal because some of the schools they function as usual, but there is a requirement for them to have proper shelter. uh, I think like basement is a requirement, so not all schools have that. So some of them function remotely, but luckily, the humanity suffered from the well, kind of luckily from the COVID epidemic, right? So we were more or less prepared to situations like that. So educational system was prepared to that. We have some like applications and some means to well taking care of well the classes remotely. So and yeah, we continue to rely on it. Um, so yeah, so they're somewhat functioning, but well, like all kids are going to school in some way, so it's I think that's not an issue nowadays. It's not worse than during the COVID times because at least some of the schools can function. Because during COVID days, like none of the schools were functioning right, so everybody stayed home.
How have things gone back to normal with like healthcare services and going to the doctor? Like you mentioned, your mother-in-law. Um, are those type of things supported again?
Yeah. So it's actually well, at least in capital. So that it's all right. I have no To be honest, I have no complaints at all about the healthcare system. Of course, it's not cheaper than it was before because everything getting more and more expensive. But apart from that, most of the facilities are functioning properly. There's everything that you like, MRI and stuff, like everything functioning. There's a supply of well medications of all sorts. The only thing that well sometime it's not easy to get your hands on is the vaccines. But well,
Mm.
we have a list of. I'm talking about vaccines just because well, my son he's like 3.5 right now, so he's getting his shots like uh, some well periodically, right? And we have like this mandatory like set of shots. Most set of vaccines most likely will be able to find them. There is not a big issue with them, but the vaccines that are not mandatory, for some reasons they're missing in the country at all, so they're not in capital and obviously you won't be able to find them in other places either. And the bad thing is that it's not due to the war actually, because like something in our like health uh, Ministry of Health, or yeah, probably that would be appropriate translation. They messed something up and they can't supply them anymore, or they didn't reserve like proper amount. It's like yeah, never ends. But I think it was not a common thing even before started. So yeah, I think we have COVID shots. They're free, like so perfect. Nobody is getting them though, but you can get one if you want to.
Do people like write out what they want to do in case something happens to them and what they may want to have done based on funeral services and stuff? Are there plans now being written out there?
Yeah, that's I think well that's really a good question. Just because our ethnicity, I know that. Well, I will give you some like historical, I think, information there. During the Second World War, since we all fought in this war in some way or another, Ukraine heavily fought well alongside with the as a part of Soviet Union and with the Allies. I think we suffered the most losses after the Soviet Union, probably in the on the Allied side. So we were quite familiar with that. But the bad thing about that is that, well, about the station there, it was we had this. I know you have in the US this like steel blanks on the chain that people military wear, right? Like identification tags,
Yeah, they call them dog tags.
the dog tags. All right, perfect. So we had a knowledge of that in Soviet army, but it was like some just piece of paper rolled in like plastic tube, something. And soldiers were never taking them along with them to the battle because it was uh, like bad habit, or how it's called properly, like bad sign. It was like bad sign, so probably you would die. You will die this day if you will take it with you. So, and they think that's from where our well, relationship with that thing originates, because nobody doing well, majority of people doing nothing in order to prepare them to stations like that, just because nobody wants to think about it. So it's not common thing, at least in, well, my country. So most likely some people doing all the legal stuff to, well, spare their relatives from dealing with it after they will go. Um, but yeah, it's not common thing, unfortunately. Maybe because of that, like way of thinking. I don't know, but it's just an example of how it like of our relationship with the dog tags. So yeah.
Is it something that like people are discussing at least writing down like a like I guess in the US we have like wills, which is like what we want to have done with us. Is that something that's done?
Yeah, that's in 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 the communication protocols we have term last will, and I really like it because yeah, it certainly is last will, right? And it's common thing, but mostly across the military people, because well, they way closer to that than, well, civilians. Not in all
Mhm.
cases, but yeah. So, but I can tell it about the others. Like in my surrounding elders, I like it's a handful of people that care about it in like in some ways, but most of them, no. Again, it's I think it's just like bad sign for them or something like that. Just like, and I think I still have the same. Although I understand that this is not very smart, but well, still I try not to think about it.
That's fair. That is, and I feel like that can be something that is also very big for survival and is to not think about those things. Um,
Actually, like you would be surprised, but the I think it's a common thing across, well, at least the people that I chatted with, that you're not afraid to die in that situation just because, well, you're so tired that probably you will rest finally. But you're afraid about what brings death. That's
mm,
the really weird situation, because you like don't care much about, well, what will happen to you, but you're afraid as hell of those rockets and like just artillery and stuff flies like above your head. So yeah, probably that's a good mood to write something like the last will letter, something like that. But nobody's doing that. So yeah, paradox, I think.
yeah. Is there anything else that um, you think you and your family have been affected with all of this, or that's really changed?
Well, everything changed. Even the language that we prefer to, well, in our daily life. So yeah, because like the biggest part of Ukraine spoke Russian before the war started. So and they still do, but well, we all know and we all knew back in the day Ukrainian. So we just like when you're raised in like Russian speaking family in a Russian speaking country, it's probably would be hard to stick to something other than that. And of course, yeah, you need to mention that consider the thing that I mentioned earlier is that most people would consider you to be like from I don't know rural areas or like rednecks of sort, which is unpleasant. So yeah, but well, like we talk different language, we eat different food, we live in different place, so probably everything's affected. It's like you're relocated to well different place without your will, I think, and without any luggage. So yeah, that's how probably I can describe it. So
Is
yeah, everything's affected. It's like it's easier to say what wasn't affected too much. Yeah,
what is something that wasn't affected?
that's my work, which I'm really happy about, and I'm really glad that I have my team that always supported me, and yeah, I have the ability to work and provide for my family, working from any random place, which is good. What else? I have my two cats with me, which is good. It's bad because, as it turned out, it's really hard to find a place to live like the cats in hand. Nobody wants them. But yeah, we managed to do that, so that's awesome. I don't know. The rest changed, I think. The rest changed. Mm.
Yeah. Are there any questions or things that you wanted to bring up that I didn't?
Um, well, it's really hard. So, well, I have like couple of things to mention about mental health and work motivation that I wanted to, because I think those are really important things that will keep you sane and keep you well funded if you end up in station like we did. But yeah, I think we covered those before, like in the very beginning of this episode. So I think I'm good.
Well, what was for your own mental health, but like also you have your family to take care of in your community. How did you manage being able to keep your uh, survival, yes, as in physically, but also your mental health now that things are somewhat settled? I say somewhat very loosely, as they're not as, it sounds like they may not be as bad as they were when things started, but it's still not like that constant worry or fear isn't there. How do you manage your mental health?
Well, probably I should do better job of doing that. That's one thing. But well, there's certain things that you need to admit when stations like that happen in your life. First of all, there's no such thing as mental health anymore. It's like absence of mental health of sorts, because you'll be heavily affected. You will have PTSD if you left a combat zone. You have these flashbacks and stuff, like not that intense, of course, as well fighting the front line, but still. So it's just a matter of time when it will get you. But well, there's some things that you could do to dampen the effect. Well, first of all, just try to not care about everything, because you will see this like broken society, broken families, like people losing their loved ones. It's horrible. So, and this is hard to ignore stuff like that, but like there is no, you won't have any choice, unfortunately, because if you will try to process all this information, like you will be so depressed and very quick. So that's one important thing. So you need to try to abstract from reality, which is super hard, but still this is not an optional thing, because you need to somehow survive. Because the second thing is that, well, keep in mind that none of that will last without well, any effect on you. It won't be happening, so you will pay your price, but afterwards. So just be prepared to that and prepare to that, because when it will end, I think like we will just like no, when we relax, we will just turn in some like puddles, just like will melt. Uh, so yeah, the conflict, the ongoing conflict, keeps us well in tones. After it will end, well, the biggest thing that is worse than war, the uh, the stuff that happens after war, and we know that. So we keep that in mind, and we understand that it's easier for now to be well motivated and somewhat functioning than afterwards. Probably find psychiatrist. It's not a bad idea, although I'm guilty not doing that because well, just because well, I don't think that's just really hard to like know to come and complain to somebody who lives in the same exact situation as you. It's horrible, but it is what it is. Just like yeah, if you will find a person that's not living here, this person won't understand you. That's what I think. So just yeah, it's never a good solution to that. But yeah, probably you should find one. Any person will do just to tell them what you feel. That's important. The other thing is more than stay focused. I don't think there is something most effective for encountering situations and mental issues like that. Just stay focused on what you're doing. And this, I think, we can apply it to the entire country. We all know our place. We all know who our enemy is, and we all know what to do. So we just well staying focused. We're working, we're paying our taxes, we're providing our services. Just well, we're actually quite hardworking nation, so it's kind of natural to us to just try to work out the solution, just work. Uh, so yeah, that's all we're doing. I think there's no like magic recipe because it would be really hard to. Well, yeah, and of course there's medication. So you don't need to be shy to take something that will well make your days brighter. If there's prescription, please follow it because that will very most likely it will help you. You won't be happy by the effects on you, but well, I know that people are relying heavily on some medicine to get them through the days. It doesn't matter like civilian or military people, but still, that is something that well, I think it will help most of the people.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Uh, Digging in a bit further on a few pieces of that, yeah, especially because you mentioned that where you're from was so close to Russia. I can only imagine that you or others may have family that lived in Russia or people that may side with Russia through all of this. And
um,
any any suggestions or help or how you might have handled dealing with that in the mental health, because that is also a very, very trying thing to go through.
he was saying that you need to forgive and forget, and well, yeah, that's really sensitive topic for the like very east, I think, part of the country for all of them. Luckily, I don't have any relatives in Russia. My relatives are either from Georgia or Ukraine. But yeah, some of my friends do, and they're actually well, they're not talking to them at all. Just like families broke, like they were trying to do to maintain the relationship, or at least like for the like first maybe month or maybe year, but they ended up all the same. So all my friends who stayed in Ukraine, they are not communicating with the relatives in Russia just because propaganda is so intense there. They think that we like. eat children, like we're Nazis, and yeah, like bunch of nonsense. But yeah, I won't go deep into their narratives. But well, it's just like it messes up with everyone. It's really unfortunate. Even if you have like close relative there, you won't be able to help it because, like for example, like mother of my friend lives in Russia, and like he didn't talk to her just because like she doesn't understand him and she thinks that we're doing horrible things here. So
Oh,
it is what it is.
it,
No advice.
how
Sorry, like it is super hard. Yeah, probably it would be a good idea to pause communication for a certain period of time and figure out what to do later, because most likely, yeah, your relationship will suffer if you will try to discuss what's happening, and you will discuss what's happening, just like matter of time.
how about unlearning the propaganda? Because that is at least for those who you mentioned earlier that even those, especially in East Ukraine, had a lot of that propaganda as part of their life, and then having to realize life is very different than what they were taught. That's a big mental. Um, uh, I don't even know how to say it, like that just fucks with you, and on a very very deep level of how how did you or others go through that and start to find the truth for yourself?
Oh yeah, it does, it does. But I can tell about other people just because we never discuss stuff like that. To be honest, just like because we live in this environment, it's not like we try to like avoid, because like we all understand what's happening, we all feel it a bit different way, but still it's the same station for all of us. For me personally, I'm just trying to think about it. Like just imagine that you, I don't know, you're like in prison, like for I don't know most part of your life, and after well getting out of it, you're trying to start new life in everything, trying to rethink all your points of reference. You want to establish new directions that you would like to go, new goals, new everything. Like again, even language that you speak. So that's a very weird thing, but yeah, it is what it is because this is really hard to well just like fit in your head. Like that's everything was well quite far from mm, the way that we were thinking about it. And the worst thing is that my it's not this not happens to all the people in Ukraine. Luckily, I'm really glad that it's not. But in terms of mine hometown, my environment, all that, it was destroyed like immediately because everything, like all the people, like left. Uh, I, I think I have like let me say like 5% of my relationships well intact still. All the rest are well, I'm not communicating with those people for multiple reasons, but well, they all related to war. Just because I was before the 2022 and I now I don't. So yeah, just like starting new life like this, like idealistic way of I don't know, like rob a bank and move to a different country and start everything like over. Yeah, that's probably what's happening. So yeah, I try to think about it this way. Like not that everything was a lie, but just well, I my eyes are opened now and I'm starting something new. So that's really important to understand that you need to originate through something like creative, something that will actually give you opportunity, but not from some like traumatizing experiences. So and it's a bit easier this way. It's a bit easier.
Was it hard for you having colleagues that they they didn't understand what was going on or how serious it was?
Hmm. Well, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I'm actually glad that they don't understand and they don't have an idea. That means that well, it's only me. So that's good because entire world is still like, well, most part of the entire world is still functioning as usual. People living their lives, they're moving our humanity through the, well, to the obstacles. And because, like, obviously we can participate in those activities because we're busy killing each other, which is not, well, good, well, way to spend your time. But actually, well, again, I, I don't think that I want to share any of those stuff and experience with people I work with because, like, just seems so rude from my end, will be honest, because it's like so depressive and, well, it's bothering me in the first place. When people just tell me, well, they feel sorry for me and they always supported me and they just ask from day to day, like, how are you doing? Like, that's more than enough for me, to be honest. I don't need anything more than that, I'll be honest. And again, I was really surprised by the amount of support from my colleagues. So that was one of the, I think, most important things that helped me, well, at least like in the very beginning, to, well, uh, keep sanity in place. So yeah, and I don't know, maybe like, if you will try to tell people some stuff just like from day to day life, like I don't have electricity for half of the day, or like today they shut down like three missiles like 100 meters above my apartment or something like that. Like, what response do you expect? uh yeah, so yeah, just that. And
That's
yeah,
fair.
yeah, and when people try to tell you that they understand you, well, I know they don't. And it's just like, I think that's the rule of thumb for all the people who suffered some well, PTSD syndrome, right? To some extent, or they have something going on in their lives. Don't try to pretend that you understand them, even if you do. Just yes, and that would be easier. And again, so I don't need it anyways because I have like 40 something million people that understand my situation. So that's probably enough. I want to find somebody who doesn't understand, doesn't care, live their lives and just discuss, I don't know, where they will go this summer. Because I will go nowhere and I will sit still here. But yeah, at least I will see some pictures. Well, yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. And thank you for that. I think it's one of the hardest things to want to be empathetic on something and relate to someone on some level and yet have no idea what they're going through and even not being able to imagine it of it's hard to just be there for them and not try to fix it, I guess, as like so many of us are like, well, what about this or wanting to do this or maybe if you put a different mindset in. I love how you just mentioned how just asking if you're okay is something that can mean a lot
Believe me,
even.
that's all I need. Well, at least myself. Uh, that's all I need just because, well, there's nothing. But after being in my current situation, I understand there's nothing that I could recommend a person who goes through the same challenges. Even like, let's imagine there will be, I hope there won't be, but if there's like a war in like different place, different country, what I can recommend them? Well, I have nothing to recommend because all experience are like really personal. I can recommend something that, well, responsible for their survival because now I know what is. So yeah, maybe that experience would be, well, I could use that experience back in the day, that's for sure. But in terms of like keeping healthy mind and stuff, there's certain recommendations, but, well, they're like, it's really hard to apply them, to be honest. Every station is different. Every station is different. Every word is different, and like, for every person is different, right? So something that would work for you might be harmful for others. Uh, so yeah, that's right.
Thank you. Um, Before we start going into the closing items, eh, any other things that you wanted to bring up?
Mm, well, I think no, I have nothing to tell. Just try to. Well, if you will see people like me, just try to ask them how they're doing, and that's all. Because if they want to tell you something, they will tell you something. If they don't want to tell you something, they won't tell you anything. So I think that applies to any people that going through some like not very happy period of their lives. Doesn't matter like if this person is sick or I don't know what else.
As we start to wrap this up, I feel you already answered on what's one thing we can do, and just asking someone how they're doing is a big step of it. Do you have any words of wisdom that you want to share, or something that you would tell yourself the past you that may give you hope?
Well, words of wisdom is that well keep your gas tank always topped up just in case you never know. Um, Second thing is that for all you preppers out there, I'm part of your community. Half of the stuff that we try to think that will work, it's not working, but half of it works. So keep doing that. That's a good thing. And second of all, well, I think like any experience in your life, after being well, some can suck probably, but well, it will be there will be always learning opportunity. So just try to learn. And if you learn, try to share this experience. So that is why I'm doing that, because I think that all those lessons are well invaluable, at least for me. And if it would be useful at least for a single person on the entire planet, I think it was worth it. So yeah, keep an open mind.
And if people want to reach out to you, or follow along your journey, how would people reach out to you?
Well, I have an email, so feel free to drop me a message like if you have any questions. Yeah,
We'll put your email address or your LinkedIn in the show notes.
sure.
And last but not least, what is something that you're grateful for?
Well, I'm grateful that our world has way more caring people than I expected. And like, believe me, I'm pessimist. Like, yeah, and I was really pleasantly surprised. Like, even like, you guys in the first place, right? So, yeah, I'm grateful that you guys exist. I think that's it.
And to end us off, I would say something I'm grateful for is your willingness to share this with people that don't understand and that don't know what's going on, or um, that it's a lot of this is I can only say unimaginable, even thinking that humans go through this, but it is hard to hear. It's not something that's pleasant. And I'm grateful that you're taking the time to share it, so that way we more of us know what's actually going on in the world, rather than the bubble some of us live in. And
Oh,
thank you, Vasha.
yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining Shit You Don't Want to Talk About. I'm here to get the conversation started. It's your turn to continue the conversation. Don't know where to start? Here are a few ways. Rate and review the show, send this episode to someone, and let us know on social media what shit you want to talk about. Bye.